Most people don't realize this yet, but wealth behaves like gravity. It clumps together, it concentrates, it pulls more of itself into a tighter and tighter orbit. The numbers are brutally simple. The top slice of the market controls most of the spending power. The transcript puts it this way: the top 10% hold around 60% of the available money in many industries. You can ignore that reality, or you can build a life where it works for you instead of against you. There's a strange irony about rich clients. They have the same problems as everyone else: fitness, relationships, time, uncertainty. Only amplified: bigger teams, more commitments, higher stakes, more moving parts. A typical wealthy person might have multiple layers of staff, contractors, consultants, and a network of responsibilities that would overwhelm most people. This is where most entrepreneurs fail. They treat the wealthy like mythical creatures rather than what they really are. People who have money to solve painful problems. The strangest thing I learned early in my career was this: selling to rich people isn't about being fancy. It's about being relevant. Most business owners exhaust themselves chasing the wider crowd, the masses, the 90% who are drowning in expenses and cautious spending. Meanwhile, the most lucrative opportunities are just outside their peripheral vision. Most people never look up. So today, let's talk about the invisible rules of selling to people who have resources. Not in a fake guru yacht hustle way, not in a sleazy let me pitch you way, but in a grounded approach that aligns with something deeper. I call it the quiet doorway. If you understand how to walk through it, you never have to shout. Before we go into the strategies, I want you to imagine something. Picture two paths. Path one is crowded. Everyone is shouting the same offer: affordable, budget-friendly, accessible. The prices drop, the quality drops, the competition turns into a race to the bottom. Path two is quiet. A few people walking slowly. The conversations are different. They talk about value instead of cost, results instead of discounts, time instead of price. That second path is where growth happens. The transcript shares a story about a consultant named Ray went from charging $2,000 a day to $20,000, not because he learned a new trick, not because he suddenly became smarter, but because he repositioned himself from the mass market into a small slice of clients with bigger stakes and bigger budgets. That is the real lesson. Money doesn't just follow talent, it follows relevance. Here's where most people get this wrong. They try to look premium, or they try to mimic luxury branding. That's not the point. You don't need gold foil, marble textures, or expensive clothes. You need clarity on who you solve a painful problem for, and at what level. There are three principles we're going to walk through. The transcript lists them as pitch, context, and land and expand. We're going to translate those into something deeper and more human: how to show up with clarity, how to be perceived before you open your mouth, and how to grow the relationship from tiny seeds into life-changing deals. Let's start with the first one, the pitch. Most people believe a pitch is about selling. Rich people don't see it that way. They see it as signal. They judge whether you know what you're talking about, whether you value their time, whether you've put actual thought into your offer. The transcript breaks the pitch into simple elements: name, same, fame, pain, aim, and big game. But underneath that framework is the real insight. Wealthy people are inundated with information and introductions. They need clarity almost immediately. There's a phrase I want you to hold on to: uncertainty kills opportunity faster than rejection ever will. If you hesitate to explain what you do or who you help or why you matter, the moment slips away. But here's the subtle trick. You never just dump your pitch. You don't force it onto someone. Even the transcript describes asking permission first, because high-level people respect. Years ago, when I was starting out, I made the mistake of thinking I needed to impress people. I'd over-explain, I'd ramble, I'd try to cram my value into a single desperate paragraph. Then one day someone said to me, "If it takes more than 30 seconds to explain what you do, you don't understand what you do yet." It hurt, but it was true. So let's simplify the pitch concept into a rule that never fails. Can you tell me what problem you solve, for whom, and why you are the safest choice to solve it in under a minute? Not a life story, not your origin arc, not a motivational speech, just clarity. If you take nothing else from today, take this: rich people respect preparation more than flash. And here's the next thing nobody teaches you. Context is your silent pitch. The transcript uses the phrase contextual adjacency. The idea that your environment speaks before you do, it's one of the most powerful social dynamics in the world. Not because it's elitist, but because humans are wired like this. We judge by patterns. We read the room long before we listen to the words. Let me tell you a story from my own life. I once met a founder who built a company worth hundreds of millions. I expected marble floors and private jets. Instead, we met in a quiet bakery. He wore a plain shirt and carried a notebook. No entourage, no flash. But the context was in the details. Everyone in the cafe knew him. The owner called him by name. His notebook was filled with actual handwritten strategy. His phone never buzzed because people already knew he protected his time. That was context, not luxury. Authority. When the transcript talks about the difference between showing up in a cracked Android versus showing up with a certain brand transcript, it isn't about materialism. It's about presentation. And presentation communicates something deeper. Are you intentional? Rich people respond to intentionality, not trend. I'm going to stop the first part here, and we are going to get practical in the next section. The next phase is where the real shift happens, the hidden strategy the transcript calls land and expand. It's the method the wealthy use to test whether someone is worth bigger opportunities. We'll talk about how to start small, build trust, and grow the relationship without ever begging, forcing, or selling. There's a reason the strategy of starting small and expanding is powerful. Wealthy clients don't buy the first interaction. They don't fall for charisma. They don't hand money to strangers. They test, they observe, they watch for consistency, not potential. The transcript describes this as land and expand, but there's a deeper truth underneath that phrase. Rich clients build trust the same way. Engineers build bridges. Small load, slightly bigger load again. If the structure doesn't crack, then they allow greater weight. It works in life too. The first gig becomes the second. The small project becomes the partnership. And most people never experience that because they try to sell the skyscraper before they build the foundation. This is the quiet doorway again. The best opportunities start small. A conversation, a simple favor, a short session, a short workshop, a quick analysis. The transcript talks about creating proof through education or research before any financial commitment happens. In other words, show value before demanding anything. Here is the part nobody tells you. When you lead with generosity, you don't lose power. You gain leverage. Because generosity is a display of confidence, the insecure seller demands trust before earning it. The competent seller proves themselves before asking for anything. Think about how you make friends. You don't start by negotiating. You don't ask for a contract. You start by building familiarity. You trade small signals of trust. You show you are reliable in the little things. Business works exactly the same way, especially when the money at stake is larger than most people ever see in a personal bank account. Let's make this practical. The transcript gives examples: a fitness instructor offering a run, a consultant doing a short workshop, a strategist sharing insights totally free of charge, not to prove worthiness, but to build context. This is where many people panic. They think if I don't charge up front, I look cheap. It's the opposite. The willingness to start small signals that you are certain in your ability to deliver. That certainty becomes magnetic. And once that small success happens, you do something most people overlook. You document it. The transcript emphasizes this. Always provide a written, printed artifact of the results or insights. Because wealthy clients often rely on other decision makers. The CEO has a spouse. The entrepreneur has an advisor. The investor has a partner. A printed document does something an email never will. It travels. Results become shareable. It's not about looking professional. It's about making choice frictionless. I learned a version of this working with a client years ago. We agreed on a small project. I delivered early. I printed the results. I walked in with a folder. His assistant didn't know who I was, but as soon as she saw the documents, she waved me through. She later told me, anyone who shows up with things done goes to the front. Effort is a signal, and here is the shift I want you to absorb. Wealthy clients don't want creative pitches. They want certainty. They want someone who can turn a messy idea into a clear step. Now here's the twist the transcript highlights. Once you deliver the second successful result, you don't just wait for the next project. You apply pressure. You introduce scarcity. You show you are in demand elsewhere. The transcript recommends saying something like, I'm getting busy, and I'm not sure if we should double down or part ways on good terms. This is not a manipulation. It's the natural truth of a valuable person. The whole point of the small project wasn't to secure a contract. It was to verify compatibility. Rich clients respect people who protect their attention. They respect boundaries. They respect momentum. And once they feel the possibility of losing you, something surprising happens. They start thinking bigger than you do. Now I want to shift the perspective for a moment, because this isn't only about money or business. Selling to rich clients requires maturity, emotional control, a sense of identity that isn't dictated by approval or fear. You have to walk into the room without needing the room. The transcript includes a detail that people often overlook. Rich people like to make recommendations to other rich people. This is how networks grow. Trust flows horizontally, not vertically. Wealthy people introduce other professionals into their world all the time because they operate in ecosystems of collaboration. Here's a practical example. Imagine you help a business owner solve one small issue. They see your competence. They see your reliability. You deliver results in a simple, repeatable format. Then they say, "You know who else needs this?" Suddenly you aren't pitching. You're being invited. That's the moment where the quiet doorway becomes a highway. So let's step back and understand something deeper. When you choose to operate in the top segment of a market, you aren't chasing luxury. You're choosing a more efficient relationship with impact. The transcript is clear that the bottom 90% of a market controls only 40% of the money. Selling to everyone means chasing small deals forever. Selling to fewer clients with more capacity means building fewer relationships with more significance. And now we arrive at the most important idea. Selling to wealthy clients is not about convincing. It's about earning a place where your value becomes obvious. You don't have to push. You don't have to lower your price. You don't have to grind in desperation. You become the person who solves real problems for people who can afford real solutions. Imagine your life if just one client said yes, one partnership, one deal, one introduction. Every big story I've ever seen in business and wealth starts with a single relationship that works. And that's what this strategy sets up. You aren't trying to sell to the world. You are trying to become indispensable to the right few. We're going into the final part next. The part where everything comes together. The shift in identity. The exact mindset shift that separates the invisible entrepreneurs from the ones who start attracting the highest level of clients. There is a quiet lesson that hides underneath every story in this topic. The lesson is this. Wealthy people do not operate like everyone else because they do not have the same constraints. They don't fear the same outcomes. They don't measure time the same way. Their decisions are built around opportunity, not limitation. This is why most people never break into the higher client segment. They carry the assumptions of scarcity with them. They assume rich clients are harder to reach, harder to impress, or more arrogant. The reality is different. The wealthiest clients tend to be the most decisive. They value time more than money because they can always get more money. They can never get more time. The transcript says there is more money in the world than ever, but it is concentrated in fewer hands. That isn't a depressing statistic. It is an instruction. Most people build their business in the wrong direction. They design offers for those who can barely afford them. They chase the masses instead of the few who actually have the budget. Shift your thinking. Not everyone should be your customer. Not everyone deserves your energy. You don't need thousands of clients. You need a handful of the right ones. This is where your identity shifts. You stop trying to convince. You start choosing. You stop chasing low-value opportunities. You start waiting for the ones that move your life forward. You stop entering conversations with the question, "How can I prove myself?" and start asking, "Are we a fit?" When you operate at that level, everything changes. Your tone changes, your boundaries change, you speak differently, you plan differently, and this matters because rich clients are not buying your product. They are buying your judgment. They are buying your clarity. They are buying the fact that you carry a solution where others carry excuses. The transcript gives an example of asking wealthy clients what the deal should look like and letting them propose terms instead of forcing a sales script. That is the difference between desperation and power. You are not begging to be chosen. You are collaborating. You are co-designing the outcome. When they suggest a larger deal than you imagined, it's because they understand the scale of their own world better than you do. There is another quiet truth. Rich clients test your character, not just your skills. They watch how you handle pressure. They observe how you respond to setbacks. They notice how you speak about others. They want someone who can handle complexity without breaking. They want someone who shows up consistently. You cannot fake that. The world is filled with talented people who never make it because they lack patience, presence, and professional maturity. Wealthy clients look for reliability. They look for courage. They look for someone who solves problems at the level they exist, not at the level of excuses. So here is the mindset shift that makes everything click into place. Stop thinking like a service provider. Start thinking like a partner. Stop thinking like a contractor. Start thinking like a strategic resource. Stop thinking like someone who is trying to win a sale. Start thinking like someone who is building a portfolio of relationships that compound. One powerful client can change your trajectory. One relationship can change your network. One introduction can change your income, your confidence, your strategy, and your vision. The transcript ends with a reminder that the world is full of money and that you should make it a goal to sell to those who have more to spend. But here is the deeper truth. Selling to wealthy clients isn't just about making more money. It's about upgrading the quality of conversations, the size of opportunities, and the level of your impact. Most people spend their lives trying to convince the wrong audience. You are not going to do that anymore. You will show up with clarity. You will show up with context. You will show up ready to start small and expand into something bigger. And once you step into that lane, you never go back. Because the moment you realize you only need a handful of the right clients, the world gets quiet. The path gets clear, and your value speaks for itself. Success with high-value clients isn't an accident. It's a decision. You don't need louder marketing or more followers. You need clarity, confidence, and the courage to operate in a different lane. Start with one relationship, one opportunity, one conversation that pulls you into a bigger world. If you found this video valuable, like it, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and share this with someone you care about. You never know who might need this message right now. Good luck on your path. Keep learning, keep building, and keep showing up for your future. There are more videos on this channel that can help you grow your money, your mindset, and your opportunities. Feel free to explore them. See you in the next video.